When the wind forgets your name, I'll remember you. When the sky lets go of your face, I'll hold it in my hands. The story reflects on the human tendency to protect others from pain by withdrawing, only to discover that love, even in its final moments, is what we all need most. The letter he never read. The scent of old paper filled the quiet bookstore, dusty, real, and a little musty from the cracked ceiling fan spinning above. It wasn't fancy, nothing ever was in that part of Lagos. The shelves leaned like old men with stories, and the cash register clicked louder than it should. David stood in the back corner, holding a worn paperback. The night sky whispers. He remembered the title, because Lara had always pushed it into people's hands with a knowing smile. She once said, "This book reminds me of silence when someone you love leaves." She was gone now 11 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. He still counted. His fingers flipped through the yellowing pages. That's when something fell out and floated gently to the floor. A folded sheet of paper. His name was scribbled on the front in the only handwriting that had ever made him feel safe. David. The noise around him faded. Traffic outside, the buzzing fan, a girl laughing at the counter. All gone. His hands shook as he picked it up. The fold was soft, but it had been creased too many times. He opened it slowly. "My dearest David, if you're reading this, then maybe I found the courage to let you see me, even if it's after I've gone. I thought about telling you in person 100 times, but each time I looked at you, I couldn't, because I knew you'd stay, and I didn't want that. David, I've been sick. It started with the fatigue, then I fainted one day at work. They ran tests. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure what it meant. I still don't know everything. The doctors talk like something serious might be wrong, but I haven't let them say the words out loud yet. I didn't want to drag you into the mess of hospital visits, of blood results, of watching me lose weight and strength and the parts of myself I loved when I was with you. So I lied. I told you I didn't love you anymore. I told you I met someone else. I said it with a straight face and a heart breaking quietly inside me." David stared at the paper. His breathing slowed. The words trembled in his hands. She didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left to protect him. He sat on the floor, back against the shelf. People passed him by. He didn't move. "Do you remember that Saturday you burned the jollof rice? I laughed so hard, I choked on the smoke. You tried to impress me with a candlelit dinner in your tiny apartment, and we ended up eating bread and sardines while watching bad Nollywood movies. That was one of the best nights of my life. You gave me joy in little ways. You made hard days feel like something I could walk through." His chest felt like someone had punched him from the inside. That day she left, she hadn't cried. She didn't even blink. Now he knew why. She had already cried the night before. "You were building a future with me, David. You started looking at houses online. You wanted to take me to meet your mother in Abeokuta. I couldn't watch you pour your dreams into someone who was breaking inside. I had to walk away before you saw the cracks. I didn't know how to say goodbye, so I wrote it. I'm still somewhere close, still breathing, still trying. I just needed peace. Maybe one day I'll be strong enough to find you again. But if I'm not, I want you to live. I want you to remember me not as someone who disappeared, but as someone who tried to love you the best way she knew how. Always, Lara." David's hand slid over his face, wiping tears he didn't realize had fallen. He stood up slowly, the letter still open in his hand. On the back of the page was something he hadn't noticed before. A clinic's name, Hope Haven Center, Ogun State. And suddenly it hit him. Why hadn't he seen this earlier? Why now? The book had been gathering dust in the far corner of the shop. After Lara left, he avoided anything that reminded him of her, especially the store. He stopped reading, stopped visiting. The book must have been returned by someone else and reshelved by a staff member. He never would have found it if he hadn't walked in that day by chance because of a power outage at his office nearby. All this time, the letter had been sitting there, waiting. He sank to his knees. Oh God, Lara, I never stopped loving you. He didn't think. He moved. There were no taxis outside, so he ran to the BRT bus station. He didn't pack a bag. He didn't tell anyone. All that mattered was that she was alive somewhere. He had a chance. I have to go now. The bus ride out of Lagos felt endless. David sat by the window, gripping the letter in his hand, reading it over and over until he knew every word by heart. The traffic, the hawkers tapping on the glass, the smell of roasted corn and diesel, it all faded behind the pounding in his chest. He had nothing but a name, Hope Haven Center, and a words. Ogun State was big. He hadn't even been sure the clinic still existed. When he arrived in Abeokuta, he asked around. No one seemed to know. Finally, an old keke driver nodded slowly. You mean that place outside town is still there? Small place, not be big hospital. Now for people wey no fit afford general hospital, them they treat there. David didn't waste a second. He climbed in. The sun was low in the sky when they arrived. The compound was quiet, peeling paint, dusty windows, a rusted gate swinging open. There was no receptionist, just a matron seated under a mango tree, flipping through patient cards. Good afternoon, David said, breathless. Please, I'm looking for someone. Her name is Lara Eze. She may have been here months ago. The matron squinted. Tall girl? Fine? Quiet? Yes, that's her. She nodded slowly. She stayed for some time, didn't talk much. Always looking at the window, said she liked the sound of goats in the distance. We all liked her. David's voice broke. Is she still here? The woman looked down at the patient's cards. She left, but not far. She's in the village down the road. A teacher gave her a room behind the school. She didn't want to be in the hospital anymore. David started to run. She was alive. What he didn't know was, in that little room behind the village school, Lara had waited for months. She watched every knock on the teacher's door with quiet hope. She thought every motorcycle that passed might be him. Every evening, she sat by the tiny window, wondering if he ever got the letter, wondering if he ever loved her at all. Eventually, she stopped waiting at the door, but she never stopped hoping. David's sandals kicked up red dust as he sprinted through the narrow, winding path from the clinic to the heart of the village. Sweat dripped down his face, but he didn't stop, not even to catch his breath. His thoughts raced faster than his feet. She was alive, behind the school. That's what the matron said. He scanned the crumbling cement blocks until he found it. A single-story building with faded paint and broken window panes. A bell hung crooked at the entrance. The school was closed for the weekend, and the compound was quiet except for the distant rustle of palm trees in the breeze. He rounded the back of the building and stopped. There it was, a small shack of a room, patched with zinc and plywood. A narrow door held closed by a piece of cloth hanging like a curtain. He took a step forward, then another. His hand reached for the curtain. He paused. Inside, Lara sat on a wooden chair by the window, her back facing the door, thin, frail, her shoulders hunched inward like someone who had folded herself too many times and forgotten how to unfold. A scarf wrapped around her head, her hair now gone. Her hands were still resting on a book she wasn't reading. Lara, David whispered. She turned slowly. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Her lips parted, eyes wide with disbelief. David? Her voice was thin, disoriented. David, you came? I came, he said, choking on the words. She tried to stand but stumbled. He rushed forward and caught her before she hit the floor. She was light, too light, bones and memory. He held her against his chest and she didn't speak. just clung to him like someone waking up from a long, hard dream. You didn't come, she whispered after a moment, her voice breaking. I waited. I waited so long I thought you didn't love me anymore. David pulled back, eyes swimming. Lara, I never got the letter. I only found it last week. It was hidden in a book I never opened again. I was so hurt, I stopped reading. I stopped coming to the shop. I thought you'd left me for someone else. She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. I wanted to protect you, but it hurt so much. Every day I sat at that window and waited for a call, a knock, anything. I'm here now. His voice cracked. I should have come sooner. I'm so sorry. She reached up and touched his face, her fingers trembling. We lost time, didn't we? David nodded slowly. We did, but we're here now. He stayed with her in that small room behind the school for days. She was too weak to travel. The village nurse came every morning. David cooked for her, told her stories, and read her poems she used to love. She smiled weakly as though trying to stretch the last joy she had left. And in the quiet of that forgotten village, love bloomed again. Not loud, not fiery, but gently, like morning light through cracked shutters. But even he could see it. Her light was fading. The days blended. Morning came with the rooster's cry and the soft knock of the village nurse at the door. Afternoons passed under the rustling leaves of the mango tree, where David sat beside her, fanning her gently when the heat became too much. At night, he lay beside her on the mat, holding her hand and listening to her breathing. They spoke like lovers racing against time. I used to imagine this, Lara whispered one evening, staring at the ceiling. You're finding me, saving me, holding me like this. But after months passed and nothing happened, I told myself it was just a fantasy. David brushed her cheek gently. It wasn't a fantasy. I just didn't know. If I had read that letter earlier, I would have moved the earth to find you. She smiled faintly. You found me anyway. That's enough. But David didn't think it was enough. He called clinics, tried to find a doctor in Abeokuta willing to come out. He offered to pay whatever it took. But it was a remote village, no electricity most nights. The only medicine came in brown bottles from a cupboard in the school clinic. Sometimes Lara coughed until she couldn't speak. Other times she drifted in and out of sleep, dreaming about a life that never fully became theirs. But on the better days, she would talk about her students in the village school, about the stars, about how she used to pretend she was healthy whenever she passed a mirror. I didn't want to die in a hospital, she told him. I wanted to be somewhere I could still hear birds and laughter. You're not going to die, David said, gripping her hand tightly. But even he didn't believe it anymore. On the last night, the sky opened. Rain tapped gently on the zinc roof like a lullaby. David was awake, holding her hand, his eyes refusing to blink. Lara's breath had grown shallower. She looked at him, her eyes glossy but full of peace. David, she whispered, read me something soft. He picked up a book of poems and opened it to the first page.
When the wind forgets your name, I'll remember you. When the sky lets go of your face, I'll hold it in my hands.
Her lips curved slightly. I love that, she said. Read more. He read until her eyes closed, and even after that, just in case she was still listening. When the nurse came the next morning, she stood silently in the doorway. David didn't need her to speak. He already knew. He buried her under the mango tree beside the school, the place she had smiled the most. The children placed flowers there. The villagers stood in silence. And David sat for hours, holding the last letter she had written. But this time, he didn't wait too long to read it. My David, if this reaches you, it means I didn't make it. And that's okay, because you found me. You loved me till the very end. And that's all I ever wanted. I hope the memories we made in those last days stay with you longer than the pain. I hope the way I loved you, quietly, fully, completely, becomes something you carry, not something you bury. Live well, love again, and when you do, tell her about me. Tell her I would have liked her. Always yours, Lara. David left the village a different man, not healed, but not broken either. He carried her smile in his heart and her name in the wind. And every time he passed a bookshop, he stepped inside, picked up a novel, and turned the pages slowly, just in case someone else left behind a letter worth reading. Thanks for watching.
Letter to you, my heart will